right, we've got a pretty decent sized group here, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
For those who don't know, I'm Michael Lamatina. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager for the Highland Park Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Ginny Glassner, President of the Chamber, and really happy that we can connect in whichever way works at this wacky time. So I'm really glad to see you all.
We'll be doing a chamber program weekly at various times here. We want to keep connected to all of you and stay informed, and like Scott said, even continue gathering socially. It's not social distancing, but physical distancing. So it might be at different times, different days of the week, but we'll keep you all informed and let you know when that's happening. We understand that everyone here has been impacted one way or another by this COVID-19. And so we want to keep you opportunities for meaningful connections, support, and information, and for all of us to continue to stay positive amongst all that's going on. Well, Robert, good morning. You have to unmute yourself. Here, I'll do it. There you go. Try again.
Got it. Good morning. I'm Robert Dillon from the Molly Maid Company. We've been in business in Highland Park for 23 years. It's a house cleaning company. We are considered an essential service, so we've been allowed to continue to operate. We've had mixed feelings if we should or shouldn't, but we're operating, but our volume is about 15% of normal. So that's where we stand right now.
Well, thank you. Rich from Kurt's Cafe.
Rich Heyman, Kurt's Cafe. We opened at the end of October, and obviously very interested in how we can be back in business in a couple months.
Thank you, Rich. Dr. Josh.
Hi, Josh Gilbert from Gilbert Orthodontics. Not currently working, only seeing emergency patients right now. And looks like that may be until the end of the month.
Mr. Kirshner.
Hi, Dave Kirshner of SCORE, North Shore. I was mentoring at the Highland Park Library, but that's closed. So just so you know, we offer free mentoring through teleconferencing calls. Thank you.
Mr. Lieberman. Hold on. We can't hear you yet, Mark. You got to unmute yourself.
I'm Mark Lieberman. I work with David and Jennifer, who'll be up shortly. I'm also a SCORE mentor.
Bruce. Can't hear you. But you are unmuted. Is it just me?
I can't hear Bruce either.
Neither can I. Can you hear now?
Yes.
No? Yes, you can. Okay, I'm a SCORE mentor. I work in
Wait, who's
Highland
speaking?
Park. Bruce.
Oh, hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
What should I do? Say who I am?
Yes. Sorry about that, Bruce. Continue.
Well, it took me a while to get on, so I missed the whole introduction.
Oh, sorry.
Bruce Ronner, R-O-N-N-E-R, not the governor. And I'm with SCORE, and I mentor primarily in Highland Park, Evanston, and recently in North Chicago, and sometimes in Wilmette. That's it.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Susan.
Hi, I'm Susie Guttheim. My husband Kurt is sitting behind me. I own Over the Top in Highland Park, a women's boutique.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Tanya.
Hi, I'm Tanya Fretheim. I'm the owner of Street Level Studio in Highwood, and we're a design and marketing firm. And as many of you know, marketing is kind of the first thing to get cut in a time like this. So we are hanging in there. We've got 14 people. We're all, or 15 including myself, we're all working remotely and still working on client projects as best we can.
Thank you, Tanya. Marguerite, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Marguerite from Chicago Jewish Funerals. We are also considered an essential business.
Thank you, Marguerite. Mr. Decker.
Good morning, everybody. Tom Decker, Chicago Green Insulation. Like the others, we're an essential business out installing foam, generally speaking, exclusively in projects under construction and avoiding going into any occupied houses. So thank you for everybody for what you're doing.
Thank you, Tom. Sherry, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Sherry Levin. I'm co-owner of Style Shack in Highland Park, and we are, of course, closed. We are open for FaceTime appointments, but our business is down 95%, and we don't have a future reopen date, as I'm sure many of you can relate to, but just looking forward to sharing information, and we're looking into some of the government loans that might be available.
Thank you, Sherry. Mr. Shore. Howard, can you hear me?
Schuff, you mean?
My apologies.
Yeah, Howard Schuff. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's staying safe and healthy. My business is Schuff Financial Group. I'm an employee benefits insurance broker. And thank goodness my business is still running normally. It's not an essential business, but I'm able to work virtually in the type of business that I'm in with my entire clientele. And so a lot of the questions that I've been getting from clients is I have to close my doors, I have to lay off employees, and I'm providing them advice on what they can do. So if any of you out there are in a similar situation and want to know about Illinois state continuation or COBRA, furloughs, feel free to reach out to howard@schuffgroup.com. I'm happy to provide the advice I can. Thank you.
James, good morning. You need to be unmuted.
Hi, everybody. It's James Lynch. I'm at the Art Center in Highland Park. We are 100% shut down for classes, exhibits, and everything. I am working out of the office because there's nobody else here. We had an original restart date of April 13, and that just got blown out. So in the meantime, we're sending out arts-related resources, some things that you can do at home, movies to watch, etc. If you want to get those, get on our newsletter and just send it to me, James at jlynch@theartcenterhp.org, and we'll send them off to you.
Thank you, James.
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Lang. I'm the first vice chair of SCORE's North Cook and Lake Counties chapter. We are in business right now, and we are working with Ginny and all the other chambers and John and all of our banking contacts and Mitch at the SBDC to give our clients as much information as we possibly can and mostly listen and try to figure out the right resource for their problems. Thank you.
And Ken, good morning.
Good morning. I'm Ken Henry. I'm an attorney. I guess lawyers and liquor stores, we're both essential. I'm not quite sure what the connection is, but what the heck. I practice primarily in the employment and labor law field, which is pretty active right now. As most of you know, there have been changes to unemployment. There have been different aspects of the First Families Act that deal with unemployment, sick leave. So I'm pretty busy. Working out of my isn't ideal, but it works.
Thank you. Bobby, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Bobby Hinden, Director of Family Focus in Highland Park. We are closed. We work with low-income families that have young children from birth to 4. So although we are closed, I am spending every day hunting down resources to help our low-income families put food on the table and have supplies that are in short. They're short of supplies like diapers and wipes and formula. Those are essential. So we are considered an essential business, but we're still all working from home and trying to help. So if anybody has any ideas for community resources to help our families, I'm open. I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you, Bobby. Richard.
Hi, Rich Hardy, John Hardy Limited, and the Hardy Realty Group, in business with my brother John. And we are on providing limited services best as we can. We've got a couple job sites in progress and keeping everybody as safe as possible. And then on the real estate side, we've got a little bit of activity, but there again, it's a little difficult to show homes during this this health crisis. So, but we are managing.
Thank you, Rich. Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Herzog. Sorry, you can't see me. I'm not camera ready. My business partner, Debbie Cantor, and I own North Shore College Consulting. We are working at home, very easy to work with our students. Zoom. Obviously, our business is suffering as well just because families don't have the money either to pay us right now or to sign up for our services. But I did want to make sure to let you guys know that we are providing answers to anyone, not just our students. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty for high school students right now. And so we are answering questions if students want to email us, go on our Facebook page. We are posting answers to a lot of the changes going on right now in terms of college admissions and standardized testing.
The house co-working, either Jen or Jessica, it doesn't say. Hold on, I need to unmute you. Go ahead.
I muted myself and then you muted me back. No worries. It's Jen Luby. Hi, owner of Day House Co-working in Highland Park. We are closed to the public, but several of our members conduct essential businesses, so we are open to our members. That being said, our revenue has still been slashed by more than half. So we've pivoted to an online virtual co-working model, which was free for the first 3 weeks, and next week we'll start rolling out a paid program. So.
Bruce Erickson, I believe you're in here. Bruce, can you hear me? All right, hold on. It will not let me unmute you. I don't know what the issue is, Bruce. I'm sorry. Oh, hold on. Do whatever you did again. There you go. I still cannot hear you. That is strange. We'll move along because we're slightly short on time. Is there anyone else I missed here? Feel free to jump in. Scott Rose, hello.
Wait, you missed Rochelle.
Scott Rose with Baird & Warner, serving the North Shore, helping buyers and sellers of residential real estate. We are considered an essential business. Last Friday I did have a closing, but I was not essential at that one. We are asked to stay away from those. We are getting showings. We are open for business, but obviously at a very reduced activity level.
Rochelle?
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, Rochelle DeMaster with Atria Senior Living. We are considered an essential business. Since we're not open, we're on site helping to support and get resources for our communities that are open, but are working with some families virtually, giving virtual tours and giving them as much resources as we can to keep active in the home. So if anybody needs anything, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Hey, Michael.
Yes.
Quick public service announcement. Teresa Lippert is now an available resource since learning this morning that Century 22 Media has closed their doors. So if anybody knows of an opportunity, please reach out to Teresa. I'm sure she'd appreciate it.
That is correct. Thank you, Scott. Is there anyone else here who would like to introduce themselves?
We missed Bruce Siegel, Michael, and I lost the gallery view. Can't figure out why.
I did too.
Yeah, we're
I
viewing.
think we're actually looking at somebody's screen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Somebody
Mitch,
who
I
has
think you shared your
VOL on.
screen. Can you take that off for a second, please?
It says we are viewing Bruce's screen. So let's
Bruce Erickson, is that you?
It also says post attendee. So somehow we might be viewing his screen while he's not here.
that stinks.
That's wonderful.
Maybe just kick him off the chat.
Yeah, you can do that, right, Mike? I think as the admin, you can do that.
Not sure which Bruce he is. Bruce is just have, well, he's using his computer.
You might not want to kick him off because depending on your settings, he might not be able to get back in, but you should have the ability to pause as the host to pause somebody else's screen sharing.
All right. It's either Bruce Erickson or Bruce Ronner. Oh,
Got
there you
it.
go.
There we go. We're back.
All right, Jenny, who did you say we had not gotten to?
We missed Bruce Siegel. We couldn't hear him before, so if you can unmute him, and let's see, I think that's, oh, and we missed John
McGuire here.
John McGuire, hello.
Hello. Hi, I'm John McGuire with Visit Lake County, the Tourism Bureau. And our office is actually closed, but we're all working at home. And we are working with all the cities and chambers and collecting all the names of businesses that are open, the services that are available to people, and kind of conglomerating all the counties, chamber, village lists, and so on onto our site, and offering up a lot of one-on-one assistance for businesses. So if there's news in that area, please forward that to us so we can get it up and help share.
Thank you, John. Bruce Siegel, are you with us? He's unmuted, but you do not see or hear anything.
Hopefully he can hear
Hello,
us.
if you are there.
All right, hopefully he can hear us. I think we got everybody. If we didn't, somebody raise their hand.
Tag in the comments.
Okay, maybe we can move on now.
Yes.
All right, so thank you, everyone. So now I'm really grateful, we're all really grateful that we have two experts in this area to talk with you today. They'll both talk somewhat briefly so that we can leave some time for questions and answers. I'm happy to introduce Mitch Bienvenue of the Small Business Development Center at the College of Lake County, and followed by Jon Levey of Highland Park Bank and Trust. So Mitch, I'm going to ask you to please start us off.
Okay, will do. Thanks, Jenny.
And you have my permission to share your screen as well.
Okay, yeah, here we go. Can you folks see that?
Yes.
You can.
All right, very good. Okay, so as Jenny said, my name is Mitch Bienvenue. I'm with the Small Business Development Center at the College of Lake County. She referred to me as an expert, which I take issue with because I don't really consider myself to be that, but I know what she means. I think what she means is I and the other small business development centers around the state of Illinois, as well as the SCORE organization, which Jennifer Lang and several other SCORE mentors introduced themselves. What we're trying to do at this time is to help our small businesses to the extent that we can by making sure that they know what resources are out there to help them stay open and to help them secure the money that they need to remain open. And so what I want to share with you today is a little bit about what we do and mostly about the loan programs that we're aware of, and a little bit of additional information about some things that I think small businesses need to be considering. So very quickly, there's a bunch of SBDCs around the state of Illinois. There's also some centers that can help people who want to export a product or service to overseas locations and also do government contracting. Generally speaking, our mission is to provide advising, training, and tools to help folks to start and grow businesses. During this time, we have kind of a supplemental role in what I already kind of described it. We're doing what we can to help people stay open and access the different kinds of disaster assistance funding that are out there. So regarding information, which I made reference to before, we're trying to make sure that people understand what's going on. And, you know, I think one of the challenges here is that there's no shortage of information. It's all over the place and coming from every direction, and which makes it kind of hard to filter through and figure out what's most important to you. So one of the things that we've done is created something we call the Small Business Survival Guide, and it's located at that URL address that you see on the screen. And it really does three things. It talks about how to reduce the spread of the virus. And I know we're all sick about hearing about that, but it matters because in a minute, I'm going to talk about the grants that are available. But the reality is that no matter how much money we throw at this, it's not going to matter if we don't get this virus under control. So we do need to take that seriously. So there's information in there about that, information about just how to stay open in general and cut expenses. And then thirdly, how to apply for these different kind of disaster loans. So I'm going to high level overview the 4 programs that are out there right now. Some of you may have already heard of them. Maybe others have not. So I'm going to keep it at a high level. And then on each one of these slides at the very bottom, you're going to see an application link. So you can go there and check things out in more detail. But the first one is the DCEO Hospitality Emergency Grant Program, which is available to hotels and restaurants and other hospitality venues. And it's a grant. This is the only one so far that's truly a grant. The deadline for that is today. And so if you are in that business and you're looking to do this, go to that link at the bottom today because it closes out at some point today. I don't know if it's end of business or not, but I would assume so. And then on the 4th of April, the submissions will be picked through blindly, randomly, and a lottery will be drawn. And this $14 million that's been made available will be dispersed on the 6th of April. And they're telling us that about a third of it will go to Chicago, another third will go to the collar counties, and the remaining third will go downstate. So that's the high level overview on that one. The next one is also a DCEO program. It's the Illinois Small Business Emergency Loan Fund. And this one is smaller. It's up to $50,000 for companies that have less than $3 million in revenue and less than 50 employees. For-profit businesses only on this one. Not-for-profits do not apply. There is a loan forgiveness or no payments for the first 6 months. And then it's a 5-year term loan after that. And that is, to my understanding, a general working capital loan. And so it could apply to a lot of different things like inventory and, leases and payroll and those kinds of things. The economic injury disaster loan, this one's been available for a couple of weeks now, and it's had its ups and downs. The challenge with this one initially was that there was only one gate through which all the applications in the entire nation had to pass. And the website got overwhelmed and it crashed. And they had to redesign it, which they have. And I'm hearing a lot less bad things about it. So I think it's going more smoothly than it was in the past. This one's available to for-profit and not-for-profits up to $2 million. And one of the new things that they just revealed about this particular loan is that they're now offering up to $10,000 in advance. So let's say you get $200,000 approved, you can get 10,000 of that within 3 days of your application. That's what we're being told. I don't yet know of anybody who's experienced that, but that's what they're telling us. The rate on that's 3.75 for profits, 2.75 for not-for-profits. And one of the nice things is they're extending the term up to 30 years. So they're really spreading that out. And again, the loan site's on the bottom there. And then the last one I'll talk about is the one I think we've been hearing the most about in recent days, which is the CARES Act, part of the $2 trillion stimulus package approved by the federal government and is aimed at small businesses. Now, small business is defined as 500 employees or less. This one also focuses on for-profits and not-for-profits. And one of the bigger aspects of that is the Paycheck Protection Program. So if you take a close look at that, it really is very much focused on helping employees to keep getting paid and helping employers to keep being able to pay their employees so they can keep that paycheck coming in. And hopefully when this is all over, the business will still be intact and we'll be able to move forward. So that's up to $10 million at a 4% rate. And I don't know all the details on this yet, but what they're telling us is to the extent that businesses are able to demonstrate that they use the proceeds from this loan for payroll purposes, and obviously they have criteria around defining that some of those will be forgiven. And what they're telling us now is up to 8 weeks of payroll for all employees, if the company adheres to the criteria, will be forgiven. So that's a pretty wonderful thing. Payments can be deferred up to a year. And another good thing about this program that we understand is that as of today, right now, businesses can't actually apply for this. There is an application out there, and actually Jenny sent it to me last night. That's the first I'd seen of it. So there's an application form, but there's not really an application process yet. We're still working on that, and we expect to hear about that soon. But one of the nice things is that these applications are going to be run through local SBA 7A lenders. Whereas with the SBA disaster loan that I mentioned earlier, the problem there was everything went through one gate. Well, now there's going to be lots of folks and lots of institutions helping to process these loans. So I think the communication is going to be more local and direct, which is going to be a huge relief to businesses who just want answers. So I think that's a really great thing, and I can't wait to hear more about that. Another item on this one is the Small Business Debt Relief Program, which basically means that if you have in the past received an SBA loan, that you can get debt relief, meaning you can defer those payments for 6 months. And that's another aspect of the CARES program. So one of the last things I'll talk about is just some things for us to keep in mind. I said this at the beginning. We need to take the steps necessary to reduce the spread of this virus, because nothing else really matters as much as getting that done. And so let's all, be individually responsible for doing what we need to do. And we've all heard about that, what that is. We all know what it is. We just need to do it. I think businesses need to be thinking about cost reduction steps. I'm sure you all are already. Things like renegotiating leases, getting loan payment deferrals, reducing business hours, cutting operational costs, et cetera. I think also, and I'm sure some of you have already done this, I've heard many of you say that you've had to either cut back on hours or in some cases let go of employees, and that those are hard decisions that need to be made. But I think really what the businesses need to do is get or keep the cash required to stay in business. We need to make it through this so that when we come out the other side, we can grow again and things will improve. But that won't happen unless we can survive through it. So I'm always telling folks, just let's learn from this experience and share what we've learned with others. We're all going to grow from this. I know I have. I'm guessing all of you have as well. Sometimes the best learning takes place in painful situations, and I think we're all experiencing that right now. So that's all I'll have to say. There's my contact information. And if any of you have questions about any of this, certainly we can take some before the end of this call, and I'm available via email and telephone to talk about things as well.
Mitch, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. Let's go to Jon Levey now and ask Jon to step in with some of his advice and guidance, and then we will open it to questions.
Thanks, Jenny. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's a lot happening right now, and it may have taken a global pandemic, but my mom is extraordinarily pleased to learn that I have finally been deemed essential. So your banks, whether you're a client of our bank or any other bank, I promise you that if they're participating in the PPP program or the payroll protection program, they're going to be processing more loan applications in the next 60 to 90 days than they probably processed all in an entire year. So my first advice for everybody is to be very, very patient. This process is very fluid. The SBA and the Treasury are issuing additional guidance on an almost hourly basis. So many of you saw a sample application yesterday. Ginny even shared it. Contrary to what I think Mitch indicated, to my knowledge, no bank can actually accept an application until the 3rd of April, which is Friday. The banks are, including ours, Wintrust and Highland Park Bank and Trust, are going through a process. You can actually see information on our website. If you were to go to highlandparkbank.com, you'll see updated information from within the last hour. At the beginning of this call, I was actually on another call using my my other computer, getting updated information in real time. So a couple of things to keep in mind if you're interested in the what I'll call the PPP program, or the PPP, the payroll protection program. Given the amount of volume that bankers are expecting on this, and I can tell you, and those of you who are my clients have probably been getting my updates on a daily basis, or sometimes more than daily. Most banks, unfortunately ours included, are going to be forced to serve their clients first. And none of us as bankers like that. But as I said, we're going to be seeing applications that are more than most banks have seen. So I really strongly encourage you to reach out to your individual lender, understand their process and how they're going to be accepting applications. This PPP is a SBA program. And so what we know about the SBA is they will have specific forms they want, and the banks will have specific forms. I can tell you that what I've been sharing with my clients is a list of information that I would, were I you, be assembling. I'll go through that in some detail in a minute. But know that bankers are going to want to see complete applications. Trying to send things piecemeal or sending an incomplete application is going to be hard. The bankers don't make the rules. We aren't going to be able to make exceptions. So incomplete applications can't and aren't likely to get processed. So it's important that you pay some attention. And I know that's frustrating to hear because most of us like to, do things in a hurry, and we like to send what we can and hope that that it's going to get complete. Most banks are going to have a kind of a funnel of how things are going to be processed. So complete applications. The application is going to rely, for the PPP, it relies heavily on payroll information. And the truth is, as banks, we're still getting guidance on what that's, what we're going to be looking for in that. But so, So keep that in mind, and this is when having that communication with your banker is going to prove to be so useful. And unfortunately, most of you hear me talk about that all the time, and this is going to be a test of that. Understand that just like each of you, your banker has probably been up very, very early. This is my third call this morning. And my last client interaction was actually at 5 minutes after midnight this morning, yesterday. And my first was, slightly before 7 this morning. So they're going to be busy. And on behalf of all bankers, I'm going to ask that you just kind of be patient, because all of us, particularly locally, whether it's our bank or others, we strive on trying to give you the best personalized service, and this is going to test that, and it's going to be hard. I'm going to share some things that I kind of wrote on this other computer, so pardon me while I look the other way. This program, applications accepted on Friday, and the sample application that Ginny shared, it's also up on our website, and so we're encouraging to plan ahead. At our bank, I think this is going to be the case for most of the banks. There's going to be kind of a single funnel or portal where the applications will be come in and collected so that they can all be reviewed. So again, that's why it becomes imperative to assemble the complete application with all the associated documents, payroll documents, tax returns, whatever it is that your bank's requesting. I shared that not all the SBA guidelines are yet in place. The SBA and Treasury are providing those updates daily and even more than daily. I have a list of information that I have shared, and I'll go through that, of things that if were I would be assembling, things like recent tax returns for you and your business. If you haven't yet filed 19 taxes, many have not, I'd be prepared with a year-end balance sheet and income statement. I would probably also, to the extent you can, have an interim P&L and balance sheet ready. February, or ideally, I know this is, it's one day after, but to the extent you can get some information relative to the first quarter, that would be helpful. Payroll information for last year and this year, and then going forward. As we mentioned, and Mitch mentioned, and I mentioned, the PPP is going to be heavily reliant on payroll information. And you're going to want to keep a record of that, because the way the loan works in its basic sense is, at its most generous, 2.5 times your monthly payroll. And what is possibly forgiven is ensuring that you have that during the repayment period, or that your, I'm going to page down, and I have an example here that I'm going to try to read to you all. I'm not good enough at being able to show it. But let's say that the loan can be used for your payroll. It can be used for associated costs, for the 2.5 times, or what would be forgivable. So if at the end of the period your payroll, let's say, was $100,000, that theoretically could equate to $250,000 in PPP loan. At some point, we're going to measure what those funds were used for. And if they've been used for payroll, rent, utilities, things like that, and that payroll is 200 and the associated costs add up to that extra 50, then that's how we understand forgiveness will work. If those extra costs, payroll is 200 and those extra costs add up to 10, then the 210 is what theoretically would be forgiven. So there's going to be a lot of recording that's going to take place, and banks are going to look at that. They're going to get guidance from the SBA and the Treasury, but then, remember, banks are still putting loans on their books, and so they're going to be underwriting this. So other things to think about besides payroll information is copies of your leases. If you lease your space, have a current copy of your lease with any amendments or any documents that attach to that lease that will affect cash flows. Copies of your utilities, because that's those costs may be part of what is something that an SBA lender or bank is going to look at in that. And then evidence of your insurance. So that's probably just a call to your insurance agent, and the bank will give you, specific language that they want. But the other thing that I'll remind everybody of, and because there's a lot of information flowing, Mitch, Ginny, and Michael shared this, and so most of us are staying in place, and so you might have the news on nonstop, and so you're hearing about this on an ongoing basis. But remember, banks are still have to underwrite and look at things, and a bank is not your equity partner. And so, the harsh reality in a lot of this is you still have to understand that a bank, it still has to look at things as a bank. And so we want to be there to help. We want to provide all the assistance that we can. But I don't want to give anybody the perception that for some reason the bank is, here for you as your downside equity partner, because we very rarely have a client have an exceptional year and then send us an extra check. And so that means that, we are going to, want to see our clients taking every measure that they can. And for the most part, that's very clearly the case. This is such a hard time. But every banker that I've spoken with at every bank that I've spoken with has shared the story of, some email, text, or phone call coming in from the client that probably doesn't or hasn't been impacted as materially. And the reason I share that story is because every bank is going to have to triage. And so I'm asking on behalf of everyone that you exhibit some patience with your bankers, because we have clients whose businesses have been completely shut down and still have payrolls of, many people. We have on the retail side of the bank, remember that your bank still has all of the retail or consumer clients who may have been furloughed or lost their job and are trying to figure out how to pay mortgages and everything. So the resources that your banks are going to be expending are considerable on your behalf, and we're going to try to do everything possible. How long do I expect the process to take? I didn't see the other half of that question, Tanya, but the process, funding, I believe, Mitch, step in here if I'm saying something that you've heard differently. I believe that with very little flexibility here, I think most of these loans have to fund by the end of June. That guidance is still coming. How long will funding, how long will the process take? Every bank is going to try to work as quickly as possible. These will be, while I'm stressing that, there's information you want to gather and there is a loan and it's going to be underwriting, the reality is none of these are going to get the full underwriting that your normal commercial lending activity takes. Every bank is cognizant that, this is real, it's imminent, and helping as quickly as we can is what we're going to do.
John,
Yeah.
may I interrupt here for 1
Please.
second? I just want to say thank you to Tanya for leading off with a question. Maybe now we can start the question and answer period. So if people want to type in their question, type it into the chat box, or if you have a question, raise your hand and Michael or I will unmute you.
Josh, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, John. I understand it's a very busy time for you guys. I do have 2 questions. One is on the Paycheck Protection Program application. It asks in the 4th question, has the business received an SBA EIDL loan? And if yes, provide details. So my first question is does receiving an EIDL loan or applying for an EIDL loan negatively impact your Paycheck Protection Program application? And if you have not done that yet and we're planning on doing that today, should we hold off on doing that, or any thoughts there? And then my second question is in relation to like the certifications. One of them is during the period from February 15th to December 31st, the applicant has not received and will not receive another loan under this program. Is this program the CARES Act and the PPP, or does that also include EIDL loans?
So to my knowledge, and Mitch, fill in if I say something that doesn't jive with what you've heard. And again, I caution that this guidance from Treasury and SBA is coming down all the time. But to my knowledge, you can apply for both programs. What you probably cannot do is duplicate the use of the funds. So if you use the PPP ostensibly for payroll, you can cover some utilities and rent. The EIDL loan is used for something else, some other source. As to, I think, your second program, and by the way, I am completely unaware of anybody who has received even a approval letter for an EIDL loan, given the funneling that's happening on those processes through the SBA. And I anticipate, I think Mitch and I were both on a call a week plus ago where the SBA indicated that it was 30 days from start to finish. I would guess that that's, you know, that's a generous time there, or optimistic time, I should say. Your second question was, relates to, have you already, you know, applied for or gotten a loan under this program? My interpretation of that is that means the PPP. And what I guess I would say is that everybody's anxious for this. I'm not going to encourage anybody to apply for this at multiple institutions. That's going to confuse every bank in town and take up resources that nobody has. And it's kind of, you know, I'll equate it in some ways to, you know, walking into, you know, Sunset as they're unloading the last case of toilet paper they got, and you thinking you can get the entire thing. That kind of hoarding is a bad idea right now.
Also, I want to add, yesterday I was on a call with the DCEO and Axion, which is another microlender, and they indicated that applying for one loan would not disadvantage you for applying for another loan. So that was the information they gave yesterday.
We have a question.
I want to unmute Ken.
Not a question. Wait a minute. Not a question, but I just wanted to add to John's presentation that everybody should understand that the PPP program, I keep thinking PPE because that's OSHA stuff, includes everybody pretty much. Small businesses, individuals, sole proprietors, self-employed people, not-for-profits, James, and others. It covers pretty much the whole gamut of industry. So people who may feel that they have a need, look carefully at that program, because it really covers everybody who does business in the United States with 500 or fewer employees. And even there, if you look at the instructions that come along with the PPP program, it indicates that even if you have more than 500 employees, they may consider it. There's more stuff coming down from them on that too. So
That limit 500 and more is going to relate to certain industries where
Right.
you almost can't have any less than 500. So for people on this call, I would say that's not something that probably applies, but it is, the act does call for that in certain industries.
I will add that Senator Durbin was on the call yesterday as well, and the Illinois Chamber, and pointedly asked him why 501c4s and 6s were left out of the federal stimulus bill, because, Ken, they are not covered, only C3s. We are going to be advocating for other associations, which includes the chambers of commerce across the country, to be included in the next iteration of any federal stimulus. And I may be reaching out to all of our wonderful members to sign on to a letter of support, because we need to be able to help you too.
Oh, Ginny, is that exclusively C3s, not C7s either?
It is, my understanding is it's C3s only, but I don't know for sure, John. I know it's not including C4s and C6s. I don't know about 7s.
You know, the instructions are actually kind of misleading, because they don't say not charitable not-for-profits. They just say nonprofits, which is a little misleading.
That's why I caution that this guidance coming down from Treasury and SBA is coming down so much. And that's why every banker, I actually was on the phone with a senior lender at another bank when the first SBA application for the PPP was shared with me, and it's and you know, I pointedly asked, I said, you know, do you know, have you seen this? And we, you know, our clients are seeing it before us because of how much news and everything is out there. And and things are going to change. The guidance is changing hourly. And
apparently they've already updated the application. So
right.
Just
that's
so
why
everyone,
that's why I caution to wait to hear from your bank and apply with what they ask you for, because the guidance I'm being given is that the application that was shared as a sample application. Guidance is still changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will be sure to share that information about how important it is to talk to your bankers. The nice thing about this program, as someone may have mentioned earlier, Mitch, I think it was you, is that, you know, it isn't going through one single portal, and people will have a personal connection, you know, in your community with your banker to help you through this. That's really the difference, and that's a big difference, a big positive.
It will process things significantly quicker. I mean, it's a big help.
This is Mitch, guys. Sorry, I lost my internet connection, but I'm back.
Well, welcome back, Mitch. Jen Levey from Day House commented and asked, I understand funds won't be available until June, but when will loans be approved?
So that's going to vary. It's going to vary because banks are going to have to triage the applications as they come in. It's going to depend on the institution and the volume of applications, and it's also going to rely very heavily on ensuring that what is submitted is complete. I can't stress that enough in this sort of a program. It's going to be really hard for banks because this is a federal program that the bank's participating in. So I've even shared with my clients, those of you on this call who got my update last night, that, you know, don't even, I mean, things that you normally expect of your bank, that we can look up your account information and see the histories and blah, 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 blah. If it asks for your account number, please put your loan account number, you know, all that sort of thing. It's going to be very hard for the banks to get through the processing. And it's just going to take time, Jen and everyone else. And you know, there's going to have to be some patience. And I promise you that I don't know of a banker, whether it's in our shop or anybody else's, who isn't going to be working as diligently and as hard as possible to get these done as quickly as possible.
Does anyone else have any questions? Howard commented, to my understanding, the PPP program has the biggest impact to furloughed employees who are gone and no longer receiving a paycheck. If the guidelines are followed, the 10,000 limit provided will be a grant instead of a loan. My question is, what is the income level that qualifies the business to pay their employees as a grant? If the limit is 100,000, two examples, one business makes 75,000 and pays their furloughed employees without repayment. Another business earns more than 100,000 and does not qualify for the grant. What is the fairness to that if you are trying to help your furloughed employee? You can read that there if you need further insight.
Who's that correct question directed towards? I'm not so sure. This is Mitch.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I have an answer for that.
Nor do I. I think that's probably more of a macro question. I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
All right, well, if anyone else has comments or questions, now's the time. Jeannie, you have anything to add?
Just a couple of things. I know the comment that there's a lot of information coming at everybody. From the chamber perspective, we're trying very hard to keep our web resource page updated. As we get the info, we add it to the page. So please, go to the chamber website. It's the links are on the home page, either in the drop down under the business center in the navigation bar, or if you scroll down in the big box on the far right, you can get to our COVID-19 Business Resource Toolkit page. I wanted to just add that, Mitch, the deadline for the hospitality grant is today at 5 p.m. So it doesn't matter if you submit it at 4:59 or if you submit it now.
That's also a lottery program.
Yes, it is. That is a lottery. And yeah, whether you were early in or late in, it's a lottery. Our goal here right now at the chamber is to provide as much information that is accurate and trusted and timely as possible, and to get you access to the resources that you need to get us through this crisis survival phase. And you should know that we are already looking toward the phase after this. So positioning our businesses for the recovery phase, because there will be a recovery phase, and we want our community to survive and thrive going forward. So you guys probably can't read the whiteboard behind me, but I tried to write on it the feeling that we have. We are all stronger together, and I want every one of us to rely on each other. We're going to be coming together again in this type of format, as Michael said earlier, and we're going to be offering various times of days, various formats, whether they're chamber cafes or virtual happy hours, but pardon me, Mike?
I said, yeah, cafe or cocktail hour.
Cafes or cocktails. We're going to be finding ways for us to stay social, to stay connected, and to be there for each other. So that is, we're going to be consolidating some of this into a blog post. We'll share all of the important links. This is being recorded if you want to listen to it again. And we'll be sharing it all out, probably posting it on the chamber website, or I'm not sure where. I'm going to leave that to my tech guru, Michael. So thank you all so much for coming, and enjoy the rest of your day. Stay strong, be happy, be healthy, be safe.
Jenny, can I just share again? I can't emphasize how fluid things are.
Yes.
And so information that we share today could change based on the guidance we get from the SBA and every bank's internal compliance. And so, I know Mitch and I both tried to provide as much information as we could, as current as it is at this moment, but it is fluid and evolving.
Absolutely. Great point. Thank you, John, so much. You're right.
All right, bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.